Those lights are bright.
Employees, and the employees only do what they got to do. And if it's slower, it's easier for the employees.
Once we get the PowerPoint up and we're ready to go, let's make sure we got this going.
Want to go now?
No, the PowerPoint we need to get up first.
Okay. That's interesting.
Pretty well, yeah. You're gonna see a lot of things like that. Because of that new laws of Joliet, that's what even single family is getting discounted. They gotta hire, I guess, 2 or 3 more people just for that. That's what's costing the city a great deal.
No, I think we're ready.
You all set? Okay, the meeting will please come to order. This is the duly advertised meeting of the Joliet Zoning Board of Appeals. In our capacity, we hear petitions for relief from the strict provisions of our city ordinance. In matters of this type, the decision of this board is final. In respect, it does not go to the mayor or the city council for any further action. If you disagree with our decision, you do have recourse in a court of record. We also hear petitions for variations of land use. In matters of this type, we act as an advisory committee to the mayor and city council, making a recommendation either for or against it. The final decision on land use is made by the mayor and the city council. Secretary, call the roll, please.
Ms. Safford? Here. Mr. Alessio?
Here.
Mr. McShane?
Here.
Mr. Noctree?
Here.
Mr. Riggs?
Here.
Ms. Rohr? Mr. Hennessy?
Here.
First order of business for you would be approval of minutes from last meeting.
Move we approve.
Second.
Ms. Safford?
Abstain.
Mr. Alessio?
Here.
Ms.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Mr. McShane?
Aye.
Mr. Noctree?
Aye.
Mr. Riggs?
Aye.
Mr. Hennessy?
Aye.
Next order of business would be citizens to be heard on agenda items. This is for anyone wanting to speak on agenda items. Please know also that we will allow you to speak when that particular case is called. But if there's anybody that wants to speak on an agenda item now, they can for 4 minutes. Seeing none, we could move on. I understand that you wanted to move something up.
Yes, petition 2023-09.
We're moving up new business 2023-09. The applicant is Francisco Jimenez. Status of the applicant is the owner. And under owner, it is he and Fabiano Alcazar. Location is 649 North Bluff Street. This is request is for a variation of use. Under purpose, the petitioner is requesting a variation of use to allow a 2-unit rental property in an R2 single-family residential zoning district and a series of variations to reduce required setbacks. And this again is located at 649 North Bluff Street. City Council will make the final decision on the requested variation of use. However, the Zoning Board of Appeals will make the final decision on the requested variations to reduce the required setbacks. Under site-specific information, the subject property is approximately 0.09 acres in size and contains a 2.5-story frame home with a limestone foundation. According to township records, the structure was built in 1895 and it has accommodated 1 or 2 dwelling units at various junctures throughout its history. Records show that in the 40s and 50s, the structure accommodated 2 dwelling units. Between the 60s and 90s, it is believed to only have a single dwelling unit. At various times since 1990, the structure has had more than one dwelling unit. The current owner wishes to renovate the interior of the structure to create a one-bedroom apartment in the basement level with a three-bedroom apartment utilizing the first floor and attic. Floor plans of the proposed renovations have been included in the staff report packet. To accommodate the proposed 2 bedrooms in the attic area, the property owner would build out a dormer area on each side of the attic. Elevations detailing this change have also been included in the packet. Each proposed dwelling unit would contain separate kitchens, bathrooms, and means of egress. Both the basement level apartment and first floor and attic apartment would have separate points of access onto North Bluff Street. The basement unit is not accessible to the first floor attic unit above from the building's interior. Electricity is metered separately to each dwelling unit. Structure only contains one furnace, which would supply heat to both units. In addition, the structure contains only one water service line. Therefore, each dwelling unit would not contain its own water meter. This would necessitate water to be paid by the owner of the building. This is common practice for multifamily residential structures in the city. Subject property contains R2 zoning in 95 at the request of the St. Mary's Nativity Neighborhood Association, and after additional analysis from city staff, the Plan Commission, and City Council, the city reclassified of 163 single-family residential properties, including the subject property here at 649 Bluff, from R4 low-density multifamily residential and R3 1 and 2 family residential to an R2 single-family zoning district. The down zoning was enacted in an attempt to reduce negative effects brought upon by having higher density development in and around the St. Mary Nativity neighborhood. With the new R2 zoning in place, properties included in the reclassification that were reported to consist of one dwelling unit, such as 649 Broadway Street, would not be allowed to exceed one dwelling unit without a variation of use, as long as the R2 zoning designation is in place. However, the subject property has been classified as having 2 dwelling units since its inclusion into the city's rental inspection program in 2006. Petition to grant a variation of use to allow 2 dwelling units on the subject property in 2007 was rescinded shortly before City Council consideration. The current and previous owner and the property have each stated that the property was purchased with the understanding that it could legally host 2 dwelling units. Additional variations pertaining to side yard setbacks have been requested by the owner. If approved, the property's north side yard setback would be reduced from 8 to 0 feet, and the sum of side yard setback total distance from 20 to 8.6 feet. The requested setback distances reflect the current distances between the property's main building and the respective side yard lot lines. No changes would be made to alter these setback distances. Surrounding zoning, land use, and character to the north is R2 single family. East is R2 open space. To the south is R2 single family, and to the west is R2 and it's a church. Under applicable regulations, section 4717.28, variation of use. Section 47-19.8, criteria for granting a variation, and you refer to the attachment. Section 47-17.6, R2 zoning district. Under discussion, the subject structure's current configuration does not allow for internal access between the basement level unit and the main unit on the first floor. By having separate means of exterior access, separate bathrooms and kitchen areas, the structure can function with 2 dwelling units. Having 2 separate dwelling units in the subject structure could present some challenges for the property owner with respect to having 1 furnace for 2 dwelling units, in addition 1 water service line for the 2 units. Still, the property has a history of being used as 2 dwelling unit structure, and several similar 2-unit uses can be found throughout the neighborhood. The petitioner's attorney initiated contact with the Bicentennial Bluffs Neighborhood Association. The association confirmed that it does not have any issues with the property being used and zoned to allow 2 dwelling units. The variation of use to allow 2 dwelling units on the subject property is approved. The gravel parking area to the south of the main building would need to be resurfaced to accommodate 2 vehicles. Finding of facts needed to support the requested setback variations as outlined in section 47-19(8) of the city zoning ordinance establishes practical difficulties that warrant the requested variations. Subject structure currently rests upon the northern side yard lot line, contains only 8.6 feet of space between its south wall and the southern side yard lot line. Many comparable properties that were included in the St. Mary Nativities area downzoning face similar challenges, meeting the yard and lot requirements of the R2 single-family residential zoning designation, as these properties were generally built on smaller lots within a neighborhood that was platted for a more urban environment with higher levels of density than is typically seen in a modern standard single-family residential area. Under conditions, if the Zoning Board of Appeals approves the requested variation of use, the following conditions should be included. 1, within 6 months of the effective date of the variation of use ordinance, that off-street paved parking be provided for at least 2 cars with concrete bituminous concrete or other approved surface materials in accordance with section 47-17.17J and other applicable ordinances. 2, that the 2 dwelling units remain as registered units within the city's rental inspection program. 3, should the property be declared a public nuisance, it shall be subject to a rehearing and possible revocation of the variation of use. And that concludes our staff report.
Petitioner here. Swear you in. Do you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Name and address.
Nathaniel Washburn with KGG LLC. I'm the attorney for the applicant, 111 North Ottawa Street, Joliet. I think staff did a good job summarizing. This is an old single/multifamily home. It's been both over the years. The basement is a separate unit with a full-size door, and there is no access from the basement to the main first and second floors of the house. When my client purchased the property, it was with the understanding that it was a multifamily dwelling. We found out that it was not zoned for that any longer. They're requesting a variation of use to allow it to continue to operate as we see the best use for it as a multi-unit development due to the lack of access from the basement unit to the main first and second floor unit. Here to answer any questions that the board might have.
Any questions by the board?
Yes, I have one. Joliet sits on land that gets radon. I bought a house that the basement was full of radon when I bought it, and the previous owner had cancer, probably because of it, lung cancer. I would strongly urge that the owner get radon tests and check out the basement. It is generally not advised that people live in basements in this city without having the radon checked.
Your comment is well taken. I can confirm with my client whether or not they did any radon testing when they purchased the property. I'm unaware if they have. But one thing to note, on Bluff Street, as many of you are probably familiar, these basements have exterior windows. They're not below grade. They are ground level, so they are more akin to the first floor of most people's houses as opposed to a basement, which is generally below grade and doesn't get much airflow. That's one of the biggest reasons to higher radon levels is the lack of any air circulation, whereas this has got at least 2 windows to the best of my recollection, and the door all on essentially grade level, which I think, based on my experience with some of the real estate deals, tends to mitigate some of the radon issues. But your point is well taken, and I will advise my client, if they haven't already, to look into doing some radon testing.
My house has 5 basement windows, and the radon was 12.
Point taken.
Any other questions or comments? Anybody in the audience wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Chair closes the petition. Have you got someone?
Yep.
I'm sorry. Must swear you in. Do you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, sir.
Name and address.
My name is Jan Nahorsky. I am here representing Father Kish, K-I-S-H. He is the pastor of St. Mary Nativity. And I'm also here representing the parish council at St. Mary Nativity. He asked that I attend the meeting to represent our opposition to these variances because Father Kish had a long meeting with Damon Stunich, who's the owner of Bishop Hill Winery, one of them, and he indicated that the city indicated to him that there is a desire for the city to get the area north of Bridge Street to keep it as much single-family residence or to get it back to single-family residence. That is what they would desire, and then with this situation here, allowing the variances to go to a multi-unit housing, they would be against it because they think that it would deteriorate the neighborhood, and they'd like to keep it as much single family as possible. Also, we've noticed a increase in cars that are parked in our north parking lot that should not be there overnight. We think that anything that adds to the number of residents in that area will just exacerbate that situation also. I hope that you understand that Father Jerome Kish is who I'm representing, and that this St. Mary Nativity Parish Council is who asked me to be here and represent them.
Is that part of the neighborhood association?
We are part of the neighborhood association, but we're our own entity. We're right behind the property in question.
Yet the neighborhood association approved it.
I'm not representing them, but I appreciate your comments. The feelings for the St. Mary Nativity people are as I stated, and that is what we'd like you to hear today.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank
Anyone
you.
else wishing to speak? Do you care to make a comment?
I do. Quickly, as staff noted, we're required to pave and provide parking. I would encourage anybody who has concerns about parking to visit the site. I was out there myself. Once paved, there should be some availability for parking to exceed just the 2-car minimum. It's a relatively long driveway that does open up a little bit in back. There would be, by my estimation, at least three, if not 4 cars could safely park in the driveway off the street, not adding to any traffic congestion that may be there. Additionally, should it be necessary, if that's a prime concern, I believe it's well within the board's authority to add conditions, such that no more than 1 vehicle may be parked out in front of this or something of that nature as a condition of the use. So if that's a sufficient concern, I believe there are ways to address that. In addition, I will reach out to the pastor to address any other additional questions and concerns, and this ultimately goes to the city council for final approval, so they will have another opportunity to express those concerns.
Thank you.
Is that the building at the end of the driveway part of this property?
The building at the end of the driveway is the garage associated with this property.
Is that?
They plan to rehab the garage, but so they're not planning to demolish it. So there is, again, additional parking space available.
Okay, it'll be a garage, not another dwelling unit?
No, absolutely not. No, it will be a garage. It'll either be a garage or it will be additional storage space for the 2 units that we're proposing.
Okay, thank you. Chair is closing the petition to the floor and ask the board for a discussion and a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the petition. Poll the board, please.
Mr. Alessio?
Aye.
Mr. McShane?
Aye.
Mr. Nactree?
No.
Mr. Riggs?
Aye.
Ms. Sanford? Aye. Mr. Hennessy?
Aye.
So this will go to City Council, the second meeting in March, with the recommendation for approval. Moving back to old business. First case under old business is 2023-07 and 2023-08. The applicant is Stepping Stones Incorporated. They are also the owner of the property. Location is 1620 Plainfield Road. Request is variation of use and a special use permit. Under purpose, Stepping Stones Incorporated, the applicant and property owner, is requesting a variation of use and a special use permit to allow an 8-unit substance use disorder facility for women and women with children. And again, this is located at 1620 Plainfield Road. City Council makes the final decision on these requests following the recommendation of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Under site-specific information, this property and adjacent property at 1621 Theodore Street have been associated with substance use disorder treatment since the early 1990s. In October 1990, the City Council approved a special use permit and variation of use to allow a substance use disorder treatment center at the former motel at 1621 Theodore Street, which at the time had an address of 1622 Plainfield Road and primary ingress and egress from Plainfield Road. After this approval, a new entrance off Theodore Street was established and perimeter fencing erected to separate the facility from the nightclub bar that was currently operating at 1620 Plainfield Road. In October of 2005, the City Council approved a special use permit and variation of use to allow Stepping Stones Incorporated to convert the former nightclub bar at 1620 Plainfield Road into an outpatient substance use disorder treatment center. Conversion allowed Stepping Stones to expand treatment center services from their existing residential treatment center on the adjacent property to the southwest at 1621 Theodore Street. The 2005 approvals contemplated construction of new building, administrative, and outpatient services facilities on the subject property. However, this new construction did not occur, and the existing building was used instead for meeting and office space. Subject and adjacent properties are Zone B3 General Business. Under surrounding zoning, land use, and character, the surrounding area is commercial in nature with no immediate residential uses. To the north is City of Crest Hill Business Zoning District, and they have municipal and undeveloped uses there. To the south is B3 General Business with a substance use disorder treatment facility. To the east is City of Crest Hill Business Zoning, that's their municipal building currently. To the west is City of Crest Hill Business Zoning, and that's commercial use. Under applicable regulations, Section 47-17.28, criteria for variation of use. Section 47-15B, nursing homes, sheltered care homes, homes for the aged, and sanitariums. Section 47-15B3, criteria for issuance of a special use permit for a nursing home, sheltered care home, home for the aged, and sanitarium. Under discussion, Stepping Stones, Inc. seeks to expand services to women with children by providing recovery-based housing at their existing treatment center campus. Stepping Stones proposes constructing a 2-story building on the same lot as the outpatient non-residential treatment center. The 2-story building would contain 8 2-bedroom units in total, with 4 units on each floor. Each housing unit would include a kitchen and bathroom. One of the units would be occupied by a house manager. Each of the other 7 units would house a woman and 1 or 2 of her children, and possibly a 3rd child if this was an infant who would sleep in the mother's room. There would also be a small office on the 1st floor as well as laundry room. The proposed 2-story building will have a modern design to complement the existing A-frame style outpatient building to the west. Building facade will feature planes of fiber cement siding, composite wood siding, and glass. An outdoor play area will be created alongside the new building facing the interior parking area. The proposed recovery home would provide a structured, supportive living environment free of alcohol and other drugs for women in recovery from a substance use disorder and their children ages 5 and under. This service would reunite or allow a mother and her children to remain together during treatment. Stepping Stones estimates that their recovery home for women with children will serve 12 to 14 women a year and 24 to 28 children. Stepping Stones desires to grow in place as opposed to finding a new location for the type of treatment center. Stepping Stone's state licensed treatment services at 1621 Theodore Street include intensive co-ed residential, women's extended residential, men's extended residential, and level 1 outpatient intensive outpatient services occurs at their facility at 1114 Larkin Avenue. The physical ability to expand at 1620 Plainfield Road will allow, the organization to maintain its existing services while meeting current and future needs. Stepping Stones indicated in their application materials that they are currently unable to meet the need for this type of supported living environment. There are no recovery homes for women with children in Will County. This would be the 4th recovery home for women with children in Illinois. According to Stepping Stones, the capacity at their current women's recovery home does not meet community needs, nor does it allow the organization to address the unmet need for treatment for women with young children. Additional information on the services provided by Stepping Stones and the rationale for constructing this facility is included as an attachment to the staff report. This project is supported by a $2 million congressional grant, along with funding from a number of private foundations. The Joliet zoning ordinance considers the proposed use a sheltered care home because of the facility where in maintenance, personal care, or sheltered care is provided to an individual. Zoning ordinance requires a specific special use permit for a sheltered care home. Zoning ordinance has additional requirements for the use of property for a sheltered care home. First requirement is that sheltered care homes are limited to RB zoning districts. The proposed facility is located in a B3 zoning district. For this reason, the applicant seeks a variation of use approval to allow the RB use in the B3 zoning district as part of the overall request. Second requirement is that the city council consider additional criterion for this issuance of this special use permit. These criteria A through E are noted above and under applicable regulations. The construction of the proposed facility will result in substantial site improvements. The existing asphalt parking area along Plainfield Road will be removed and replaced with 30 feet wide of grass and landscaping. The fence between the properties at 1621 Theodore Street and 1620 Plainfield Road will be removed and ingress-egress established to enhance the connection between the existing and proposed buildings at the campus. Conceptual floor plan of the proposed new facility, as well as site plan and landscape plan, are included as attachments. Stepping Stones, Inc. is also requesting approval of a preliminary and final plan unit development, which will be reviewed by the Plan Commission at their meeting later this afternoon. Approval of these plan unit development requests will allow Stepping Stones to consolidate 4 irregular lots into one overall development and construct a second building at this location. The proposed plan unit development does not include the property upon which the existing residential treatment center at 1621 Theodore Street is located. Under conditions, should the zoning board of appeals desire to recommend approval, the following conditions would be included. 1, residential uses or sleeping quarters shall only be permitted in the 8 housing units shown on the submitted conceptual plan, shall not be permitted in any common areas or storage areas. 2, all people residing at the facility shall undergo intake screening to ensure a safe housing environment. The identification of each occupant shall be established with reasonable means, including social security number and state of Illinois identification. 3, that failure to comply with any of the above conditions could result in a rehearing and a possible revocation of the special use permit. 4, that the special use permit shall be subject to review and revocation of if the activities of the occupants on premises or in the adjacent neighborhood create a public nuisance, result in an unreasonable nature of calls for service, or if the premises violate city, state, or federal laws. 5, should the property be declared a public nuisance, it shall be subject to a rehearing and a possible revocation of the special use permit. And lastly is our 180-day clause for it to initiate construction. And that concludes our staff report.
Petitioner here.
Mr. Chairman, board members.
I'll swear you in, guys. Do you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, sir.
All three. Names and addresses.
Ken Carlson, Tracy Johnson and Wilson, 2801 Black Road, Joliet.
Into the mic, please.
Paul Lordson, Executive Director, Stepping Stones, 1114 North Larkin Avenue.
Okay.
Rod Tonelli, Rudiger Tonelli and Associates, 129 Capista Drive, Shorewood.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Ken Carlson on behalf of Stepping Stones, the applicant. We also have with us Robert Morris in the event there are questions with respect to the architectural plans. And I believe David is here, the engineer who did the site plan. Just a couple of very brief comments, and then I'd like you to hear testimony from Paul Lordson. Peter McLennan, who's with us today in the back, he was actually the executive director at the time the city issued the approvals in 1990. He's been with the organization and is still, now he's the assistant director, the predecessor to Mr. Lordson. So the basic use of the substance use disorder facility has been on that site now for, what is that, 30 years? Stepping Stones as an organization has been working in this community for in excess of 50 years. So with that, I'd ask Paul Lawrenson to step up. Paul, would you state your full name, please?
Paul Lordson,
And what's your position with Stepping Stones?
Executive Director,
How long have you been executive director?
7 years.
And prior to being executive director, what was your position with Stepping Stones?
I was the Clinical Director,
And how long have you been employed by Stepping Stones?
34 years maybe, it's close.
Okay, and that's all in Joliet here?
Yes.
Would you explain to the board what Stepping Stones does at the site, the complex that includes the proposed facility?
Yep, well, it's substance use and really related mental health services. The 1621 Theodore, is that the one you wanted to, is primarily a residential treatment setting. We have an intensive residential level that has 15 beds. We have, then on the second story, 2 extended residential care units at what used to be probably known as a halfway house. We have a men's unit that houses, has 21 beds, and a women's unit that has 15 beds.
And Stepping Stones is the owner of all of this property, including the proposed site for the facility you're seeking approval for.
Correct.
And the intent is that Stepping Stones will remain and retain unified control of the entire development. Is that correct?
It is.
How are the services, what are the difference in the services proposed for the new facility from the services that are currently provided at your residential facility?
Primarily the children is the difference. Currently, we do not have services for children in any of our facilities, and there is a lack of recovery home services for women with their children. We do have a recovery home for women, but that does not include kids. So what ends up happening is that women will come in, they may have kids, they go through the intensive residential level when they're coming in, just while they're currently actively using, they'll go through that intensive residential, and then they'll move into the extended residential care, which is more like what you would have known probably as a halfway house, where they're there, there's structure, supervision, support. We do regular drug testing, and they go out and go to work. They get so many hours of professional treatment a week to be there, and they're generally in there for 3 to 4 months. Might be a little shorter depending on the circumstances. If they have children, they'll oftentimes look for something where they can have their kids with them. And again, as I said, those options generally aren't available. There's a couple of recovery homes for women with kids in the state, 3 or 4 maybe. we've referred people to them, and what ends up happening, occasionally somebody will go, but typically they don't want to leave the kids in the area. So this would provide an opportunity for them to get reunited with their kids and continue to get the recovery support services that are so important to people in their early recovery.
And the concern without having that opportunity is that at some point they leave treatment because they aren't with their kids?
That's correct.
Can you, the Recovery Center, and speaking of the Women and Women's Children Recovery Center, that will be licensed by the state of Illinois?
It will.
And that's controlled by regulations and rules promulgated by the state of Illinois?
Yes, it is.
And those will also be, that facility will also be controlled by you as executive director?
Yes.
Okay. The environment there with respect to drugs and alcohol, are any drugs or alcohol allowed in that facility?
No, it's alcohol and drug-free. Not that somebody doesn't try to get something in at times, but it's very structured, well supervised, and routinely do drug testing on people. People have to remain abstinent from drugs and alcohol while they're in the program. And so we monitor that very closely. If somebody's using something, we're gonna know about it. And we'll try to help them deal with that in a way that we're able to retain them in treatment. We wanna get people to get through. So sometimes it takes, an extra effort to get them to stop. And we have a lot of support from other organizations that might be involved with them. There's a lot of motivation, particularly for women with kids. This past year, we had in our Women's Extended Care Unit 30 women that were involved with DCFS, and they do regular monitoring of them. They come into the facility, they'll bring the kids in, we'll visit with the mother while she's there. And then, so the recovery home that we would operate for women with their kids would be an opportunity for them, again, to get into, they have to have safe, secure housing for them to get the kids back. And this would provide that opportunity.
So in connection with the care you're going to provide, the structured support you'll provide in the recovery center, what other type programs do you provide to the people who will be residents there?
Yeah. Well, as you can imagine, I'm sure you all know, somebody that's had a serious substance use problem has got many other problems associated with it. And so we do a lot of case coordination work with clients to get them access to services they might need, to coordinate with the courts, to coordinate with DCFS, to be an advocate for the client, help them demonstrate to those folks that they're serious about the recovery and that they're doing well. Primary medical care, pediatric care, there's all kinds of things that we work to try to get people access to the services that they need to take care of themselves. Mental health counseling, with child care, permanent long-term housing, whatever it might take to help somebody get their life in order and be taking care of themselves and their kids the way that we would all hope to do. So.
From an operational standpoint, there will also be a house manager.
There'll be a house manager and assistant house manager living on site. The 8 units, 7 would be for women with 1 or 2 of their kids, and then the other one is for that house manager. The recovery homes that we have been operating here in Joliet for men and women have demonstrated the importance and significance of having someone on site managing. They provide that supervision. There's someone typically who's been through it themselves, so they have that peer recovery kind of experience that they can offer to women and those recovery homes. And then they also see that clients are following the rules. There's plenty of things that we expect people to be doing when they come in, they're provided with information on it. They sign an agreement that they're willing to do that, and then it's the house managers monitoring that and doing the continue to do drug testing on folks. So again, if there's a problem with somebody, we know about it right away. And that's a critical part of this, is getting people the help that they need. So if somebody's slipping up and having a problem, we have the other services available for them so that they can step back, and if they were in a recovery room, they need to go back into the extended residential period for a period of time. We can do that. So our whole structure is set up to provide all kinds of levels of care where people can move in and out of those as they need to.
So Mr. Torrey presented a summary of sort of a building description, and the site plan is up on the board. What is the estimated cost of construction for this project?
Little over $3 million.
Okay, and you have a federal grant for $2 million, is that correct?
Correct.
And the balance will be through private funding components?
Yeah, we have about another $500,000 in private foundation funding.
Okay. From the standpoint of your residents and potential traffic impacts created by the additional recovery home, do you have an estimate of the additional vehicles that will be generated by the recovery home?
I think it would be minimal. I mean, the folks in the recovery homes, I would expect that, if out of those 8 or 7 additional beds, if a third of them had a car, maybe typically they are using public transportation or our transportation. We provide transportation ourselves. I don't see a significant change in the amount of traffic into the facility.
And then potentially your 2 managers could have a vehicle as well as your therapist? Or
yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Have you ever been on the site where you've seen any traffic congestion created by the existing conditions?
No.
And it's your intent to operate the facility in accordance with all the rules and regulations of the state of Illinois, as well as the rules and ordinances of the city of Joliet, is that correct?
It is.
Based on your experience in connection with the operation of Stepping Stone's current facilities, is it your opinion that the establishment, maintenance, and operations of proposed use, in accordance with the rules and regulations of the state of Illinois and the ordinances of the city of Joliet, will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or welfare?
Yes.
Based on your experience with the operation of your other facilities, have you determined that there's a need for this type of facility in Joliet?
We have, as I've mentioned, there are no other facilities, recovery homes for women with their kids.
You've actually served women who have had children who haven't been able to continue through their treatment program because of your inability to provide for a place for children. Is that correct?
Correct.
Based on your experience in the community for now more than 30 years, do you see anything that would indicate that that trend will change and decrease?
I wish that it would, but with the growing population and the prevalence of the substance use disorders in the general population, I don't know. I don't see why it would be decreasing.
And have you ever had any indication to determine what percentage of the women and women with children were from Joliet?
About 40%, 45, close to, I think it's close to 50%, 46, 47%.
Okay. And I believe your testimony was there are no other facilities in Will County that provide those type of services for women with children. Is that correct? Looking at the area adjacent to your property, you're bounded on 3 sides by the city of Crest Hill. Is that correct?
Correct.
How would you describe the neighborhood? Has it been stable during your time there?
It has. I'm not aware of any businesses changing. We've got a physician's office there that's right next to us. They've been there for a long time. Have no plans on leaving, I'm sure. Other smaller businesses, I don't think we've been a reason for anybody leaving the area.
To your knowledge, has anyone ever complained to you about any negative impacts that Stepping Stones has had on those adjoining property owners?
No, in fact, I think many of them have been grateful. They've hired a lot of our people that have come into treatment for us, and we have businesses in the area that contact us regularly looking to help getting some. It's been a good thing, I think, for the most part in that respect.
And you haven't requested the special use permits or either the request made today before, have you?
No.
That's all I have at this point.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for the board?
I have two questions, just for the record. The children there are just a byproduct of the women being treated, they're not themselves being treated, or do they also, are there treatment programs that correspond with the women being treated that the children have access to, or how does that work?
The children that we're talking about serving are 0 to 5, so they're not older, and so typically would not have any substance use themselves.
But there's no necessarily, I'm just wondering, like programs for them specifically that you guys will administer? Not necessarily
Not us
substantive.
directly, but in collaboration with partners in the community, we would be offering services.
Okay.
We have relationships with child care resources, we have relationships with most of the community service organizations that will be providing services to people who are basically, the underserved population.
And then the last thing, it wasn't specifically outlined in anything I saw, and I know there are substance abuse facilities that administer certain amounts of drugs themselves and as part of the recovery. Is that something that happens at your facility?
We have people that are using medication-assisted treatment or recovery.
Sure.
And our approach is to, we'd like to see everybody off any kind of medication but the field as a whole has learned over the years that that's not necessarily a good approach. You couldn't get into treatment places if you were taking any kind of medication.
Sure.
Our approach is to try to take them where they are, and if they're using those medications properly, which we would expect that they would be, then all is well, and we're going to continue to try to work with them to help them find alternatives. And there are those places, and
Sure.
it would come
Okay. Very good.
Any other questions? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Chair closes the petition's floor.
I was going to call Rod Tonelli. If you would.
Pardon me?
I was going to call Rod Tonelli.
If the board do you have some questions for the architect?
Well, he's actually being called in a planning capacity.
We'll be brief, Mr. Chairman.
Would you state your name for the board, please?
Yes, Rod Tonelli.
And Mr. Tonelli, what's your background?
I'm a professional planner. I've been practicing as a planner for 27 years, and I'm certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners.
And you've been practicing here in Joliet, is that correct?
For the majority of my career, yes.
And you're familiar with the site, is that correct?
Yes, I
And
am.
you're familiar with the petitions that have been filed?
Yes, we are.
Based on your review of the petition and the familiarity of the area, do you have an opinion as to whether the establishment, maintenance, and operation of the proposed use is in accordance with the rules and regulations established by the state of Illinois and in accordance with city ordinances and will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, welfare, or morals of the community?
Yes, and my opinion is that there will be no detriment or danger to the public health, safety, welfare, or morals of the community.
Do you have an opinion as to whether the proposed use, if it's established, maintained, and operated in accordance with the rules and regulations established by the state of Illinois, the city ordinances of the city of Joliet, and the conditions proposed by staff would be compatible with uses in the immediate vicinity of the property?
Yeah, I think as we've heard from the testimony today in the staff report, it's certainly compatible with the uses in the vicinity of the subject property.
And likewise, do you have any opinion as to whether that use, that proposed use, would have any negative or injurious impact on the use or enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity, or substantially diminish or impair their value?
Yeah, my opinion would be that it would have no injurious use to other properties in the area or have a negative impact on their value.
Okay. Based on the current build out in the area, is there any reason to believe that the proposed use would impede the normal orderly development of the immediate area?
None that I'm aware of. I think it only enhance the area with the improvements that are being proposed.
Okay, and finally, based on your review of the petition, do you have an opinion as to whether the proposed use on the subject property will create any impacts on adjoining properties or surrounding properties that are unique and different from any potential adverse impact created on other parcels within the zoning district?
There should be nothing unique or different. Similarly situated properties are all.
That's all we would have.
Okay, thank you. Now, is there anyone out there that wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Chair closes the petition to the floor and asks the board for discussion and a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, a second to approve the petition. Poll the board. Do you want to hear these separately?
You can do them separately or together, as long as you
Okay.
say that you're doing.
We
them
will
both
be
together.
voting on 2023-07 and 2023-08.
And the motion will still stay approved.
Right. Poll the board.
Mr. McShane?
Aye.
Mr. Noctre?
Aye.
Mr. Riggs?
Aye.
Ms. Safford? Aye. Mr. Alessio?
Aye.
Mr. Hennessy?
Aye.
So this will go to, both of those will go to city council with a recommendation for approval. Again, that would be the second meeting in March for these. Moving on, the
I was wondering if he was going to cross it by him.
last
Thank you,
new
folks.
business agenda item is
This is
2023-10.
going to.
That is for Il Difonso Orozco.
Must be getting paid.
Is the applicant. The location is 712 Landau Avenue. Request is 2023-10, variation of use. And also there is a repeal of an old variation of use, 2006-88. And that was for a frozen ice cream distribution center that was approved at this location. Under purpose, the applicant is requesting a variation of use to allow the addition of one residential unit for a total of 3 residential units located at 712 Landau Avenue. The applicant is proposing to convert the first floor commercial space of the building into 1 residential apartment. As part of this request, the existing variation of use, petition 2006-88, approved under ordinance number 15651 in September 2006, will be repealed. Variation of use requests must be considered by the city council following the recommendation of the zoning board of appeals. The applicant is also requesting a variation to reduce the minimum lot area per family from 3,500 square feet to 1,947 square feet. In addition, the property has existing yard and lot nonconformities, which include for the front yard setback of 6.1 feet. Minimum required in an R3 district is normally 25. Side yard setback of 1.5 feet. The minimum required in an R3 district is typically 6 feet. Sum of side yards of 9.9 feet. Minimum required in R3 district is 14 feet. Lot coverage of 33.5%. Maximum allowed lot coverage is 30%. Lot area of 5,841 square feet. Minimum required in an R3 district is typically 7,000 square feet. Lot width of 47.7 feet. Minimum required in an R3 district is typically 50 feet. Section 47-17, 22.3, non-conforming structures of the zoning ordinance allows pre-existing non-conformities to remain as long as the structures are not enlarged or altered in a way that increases their non-conformity. Site-specific information, the property in question is 5,841 square feet and contains a two-story brick building with a commercial space on the first floor and 2 residential units on the second floor. Rear yard contains a paved parking area. Building was constructed around 1906 and has held both residential and commercial uses since around that time. According to city directories, the building contained a grocery used from around 1920 to 1980. The current owner purchased the property in 2004, and the commercial space was vacant at that time. In 2006, the city council approved a variation of use to allow ice cream carryout and distribution center, a B3 use. In the first floor commercial space of this building, the common space is currently vacant. Second floor contains 2 residential units, each with 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The living area per floor is approximately 1,680 square feet. 2 units have been enrolled in the city's rental inspection program since 2005. Currently have a 6-year certificate of inspection that expires in 2026. Property is zoned R3, 1 and 2 family residential. Under surrounding zoning, land use, and character, the property is located in the neighborhood south of Ward Avenue and west of the Canadian National Railroad Yard. Zoning in the area is mixed of R2 single-family residential and R3. The blocks surrounding the property contain many two-unit residences and a few 3-unit and 4-unit residences. The zoning and land use for the adjacent properties are as follows. To the north is R2 single-family residence. To the south is R2 single-family residence. To the east is R3 vacant, and to the west is R3 2-unit residence. Under applicable regulations, section 47-7, R3 1 and 2 family residential district, and section 47-17.28 variation of use. And it's under discussion, the petitioner is requesting a variation of use to allow 3 residential units within the R3 zoning district. The building currently contains a vacant commercial space on the first floor, 2 residential units on the second floor. Petitioner would like to convert the commercial space to a residential unit because they feel that this is a more compatible use for the area. According to the petitioner, a commercial use is not feasible at this location due to the surrounding residential properties. The mid-block location, the layout of the site with parking in the rear. The 2 existing residential units are currently enrolled in the city's rental inspection program. Neighborhood services staff walked through the first floor unit with the owner in December 2022. Does not have any concerns at this time about this unit being used as a residential apartment. If approved, the 3rd unit will also be included in the rental inspection program. Proposed floor plans for the first floor apartment include 4 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and you can see the attached. The variation of use is approved. The petitioner will need to obtain all necessary building permits and complete all renovations prior to occupancy of the unit. Plat survey and floor plans for the existing second floor units are also attached. Property has sufficient parking in the rear to meet the off-street parking requirement for 3 units, which is 5 spaces. Conditions, under conditions, the zoning board, if they desire to approve this request, the following conditions would be included. 1, that off-street parking spaces for a minimum of 5 vehicles shall remain in the future. 2, that all necessary building permits shall be obtained, all renovations completed prior to occupancy of the unit. 3, that the use of the property shall not be expanded in the future. 4, that the property shall remain in and comply with the city's rental inspection program. And 5, should the property be declared a public nuisance by the city council, the variation of use shall be automatically revoked. And that concludes our staff report. Yes, that concludes our staff report.
Petitioner here. Must swear you both in. Do you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Names and addresses.
Veronica Lopez, and I'm here on behalf of my father, Ildefonso Orozco. I'm going to be translating for him for 712 Landu Avenue.
Do you have any comments?
No, just as was stated, he's trying to convert the commercial space first floor into a residential unit. It's basically going to be a better use of the area because it's located around residential properties and due to parking being on the rear of the building.
Okay, any questions by the board? Anybody in the audience wishing to speak in favor? Is
There's a
anyone
ghost over there.
opposed? Chair closes the petition to the floor and asks the board for discussion and a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the petition. Pull the board, please.
Mr. Nactry?
Aye.
Mr. Riggs?
Aye.
Ms. Sanford?
Aye.
Mr. Alessio?
Aye.
Mr. McShane?
Aye.
Mr. Hennessy?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this will also go to city council, second meeting in March with recommendation for
Close
approval.
this.
Quick question, do we need a vote for the repeal?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's get a separate vote for that one.
I move we repeal petition 2006-88.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Pull the board.
Mr. Riggs?
Aye.
Ms. Sanford?
Aye.
Mr. Alessio?
Aye.
Mr. McShane?
Aye.
Mr. Nactry?
Aye.
Mr. Hennessy?
Aye.
And that one, that repeal will also go to city council, second meeting in March, recommendation to repeal. Under old new business, not for final action or recommendation, we have none. Under public comments, we do not have anybody in the audience, it appears to make comments, but if anybody was
Bob
here.
Okan, would you like to
Yeah.
make any comments? The press doesn't care.
Seeing no one here for that option, we can move to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn would be in order. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it.